Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another episode of TEW 2020 WWE. We're into week 3 of May here, continuing the build up to Battleground for Raw and No Mercy for Smackdown and NXT. Kicking off the week, as usual, with Raw, and we start, like we did last week, I believe, with Daniel Bryan coming out to the ring for a 79, followed by Edge for an 80 for the WWE Championship contract signing, of course, at Battleground, the main event. Edge defending his WWE Championship against Daniel Bryan in a dream match. And they have their little contract signing segment, Drake Maverick overseeing it for an 84. Very good as well. Expect nothing less from these two guys. And they're going back and forth on the mic, both stating their claim, both talking about the need, the want to win, to be the WWE Champion. Edge not ready to give it up. Daniel Bryan feels it's been too long away from him now. And eventually they both signed the contract and then moved the table aside and the two men go face to face when out of nowhere it is Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly attacking Daniel Bryan and Edge from behind with chairs. Neither man see it coming, taking them out for the 70. Undisputed Era obviously having their sights set on the Raw Tag Team titles, but already took out Breezango a couple weeks ago, haven't been seen since. Now it seems the Undisputed Era may be a little bit bored of waiting and looking for something to do and saying their eyes here on Daniel Bryan and Edge, with the main event being announced. Daniel Bryan and Edge, opponents at Battleground but partners tonight, teaming up to take on Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly of the Undisputed Era. Moving on from that, next up, first match of the evening, Bayley versus Shirai for a 68. Very good from these two. Goes just over 12 minutes. Shirai winning with her moonsaults. Bayley 71, Shirai 67. Bayley a little off her game, sadly, but still a 71 from her, a 68 for the segment. Very, very good. As the Sky Pirates now get a bit of momentum going into the women's tag team title match at Battleground between the two teams of the Sky Pirates and Bayley and Banks. And then we go backstage for a little segment with some interviews, obviously later tonight. 10-man Battle Royale, #1 contenders match for the United States title. The competitors are as follows: AJ Styles, Angelo, Dawkins, Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, MVP, Roderick Strong, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, and The Miz. And then we have a little interview segment, Charlie Caruso, cutting between interviews with competitors, talking to AJ Styles, saying that missed out on the WWE title, but that doesn't mean he's not going to get gold around his waist. And if that's the United States title, so be it. He'll win that. He'll hold it to Survivor Series. He'll activate his world title, the world title clause it has in it, and he'll win the WWE title like that. Drew McIntyre saying that the Fiend, obviously scared of him, too scared to step up. And so, you know what? He's just going to move on. He's going to focus on other things, focus on the United States title tonight. The Miz saying that he embarrassed Gable last week. He showed him, well, all that struggle against Murphy was for nothing, because a real superstar, a real champion, like The Miz would be, can do it with ease. And then Seth Rollins, very down, not happy at all following his defeat in the Triple Threat 2 weeks ago, and then to Daniel Bryan last week, and says, "This isn't what I want. This isn't what it should be," is all he says about it, before cutting to Chad Gable saying that to him it doesn't matter. All 10 of the superstars tonight are great competitors, and he's sure any of them would give him a great fight for the title. But he doesn't mind who it is. He wants to face the best in the world, and he hopes the best man wins tonight, because that's the level of competitor he wants to face. For an 81, really good segment here as well. The show going really well so far. Next up, following his attack of Timothy Thatcher last week, RVD granted another Hardcore Championship match here tonight, RVD versus Timothy Thatcher. And the two men just brawling away up the ramp, going crazy. And in the end, Timothy Thatcher and RVD brawling kind of near the edge of the ramp off to the side. RVD hitting a drop kick on Thatcher, sending him flying down through the little table-y area near the pyro and the soundboards and all that, with a 5-star frog splash onto Timothy Thatcher. Neither man getting up. Medics, refs having to get out, the match having to be stopped for a 60. 50 for RVD, 57 for Thatcher. RVD sadly off his game, but still a 60 from these two men is really good. Next up, we have another episode of The Virtuoso Show with Deonna Purrazzo, obviously #1 contender to the women's title, Chelsea Green and Lana, with her talking about beating Mercedes Martinez last week, giving Asuka, wherever she is, a little preview of what is to come for her at Battleground when the women's world title was on the line. Before out comes Shayna Baszler. Obviously, Deonna Purrazzo's debut was as Shayna Baszler's tag team partner last month. Deonna Purrazzo getting the win there. And then there's Shayna Baszler without Paul Heyman. And Shayna Baszler obviously not happy about losing at Backlash to Asuka in the submission match. And saying about Deonna Purrazzo, obviously, Shayna Baszler's allowed her ideas above her station. You know, saying that without her there, Deonna wouldn't have pinned Asuka in that tag team match. And then she watched what Deonna said the next week, where she kind of glossed over Shayna Baszler, like she had set her sights on Asuka, like she'd already decided Asuka was going to win at Backlash, and Shayna's not happy about that. And the two get into a bit of an arguing contest. 52 for this segment, then the match. Next up, Deonna Purrazzo versus Shayna Baszler. And Lana distracting the ref, allowing Chelsea Green to hit Shayna Baszler with her crutch, pushing her, knocking her backwards, dazing her into a Deonna Purrazzo rolled up. Deonna Purrazzo getting a win for a 49, 45 for Deonna, 53 for Shayna Baszler. A good match between these two here. 49 seems about fair there, as Deonna Purrazzo continues building momentum heading into her match with Asuka for the women's world title at Battleground. And then next up we have the United States Championship #1 contenders Battle Royale. We have all the superstars have their entrances. Focusing on a few here, we have Seth Rollins for 72, followed by AJ Styles for 71. Then we have The Miz for the 73 and Drew McIntyre for the 70. And then the match itself, I will go over it elimination to elimination. And first up, Drew McIntyre immediately setting his sights on Braun Strowman. The other superstars kind of standing aside, letting the two Goliaths in the ring go at it. And in the end, Drew McIntyre manages to get Braun Strowman over the top rope and out of the match with a Claymore. First elimination, Braun Strowman. And then the match keeps going on. Roderick Strong running up behind Drew McIntyre, trying to get him over the rope, but Drew McIntyre fighting him off, hitting him with the Future Shock DDT before picking him up and absolutely tossing him over the rope. Roderick Strong going, flying. Second elimination, Roderick Strong. Match keeps going on, and Angelo, Dawkins and MVP working as a unit. Seth Rollins drop kicking Angelo Dawkins into MVP. Angelo Dawkins down, MVP against the rope. Seth Rollins hitting a clothesline on MVP, taking him out of the match. The third elimination, MVP. Seth Rollins a bit cocky, looking to the crowd, arms out wide, saying, "Look to me as your Messiah, and I will show you the way. I will show you all the light." When suddenly, out of nowhere, Angelo Dawkins runs up behind Seth Rollins and flips him over the rope. The fourth elimination, Seth Rollins here absolutely stuns on the outside as Angelo Dawkins gets the elimination. We're down to a final 6 here. AJ Styles, Angelo Dawkins, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn and The Miz. And Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens get into a brawl of their own. The two superstars, of course, at times the best of friends, at other times the fiercest of rivals, absolutely punching the hell out of each other. And in the end, Sami Zayn manages to get Kevin Owens into the corner, goes for the hell of a kick, but Kevin Owens ducks under it, lifts Sami up and catapults him over the turnbuckle and out of the ring. Sami Zayn eliminated. Drew McIntyre going around destroying everyone. Still, Angelo Dawkins catching him, going for the spine buster. Drew McIntyre reversing it into the Future Shock DDT, throwing him out of the ring. Angelo Dawkins eliminated. And we're down to a final 4 here. AJ Styles, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens and The Miz. AJ Styles and The Miz here kind of form a temporary alliance and go after Drew McIntyre, attacking him, getting him against the rope, and McIntyre managing to shove them both off when the lights go out. And when they come back on, the Fiend is behind Drew McIntyre, lifts up his glove, puts the mandible claw onto Drew McIntyre, whilst dragging him over the rope and out of the ring. Drew McIntyre eliminated as the Fiend holds the mandible claw onto Drew outside of the ring. Drew McIntyre eventually passing out here, leaving 3 superstars left, and The Miz down, Kevin Owens slowly getting up, AJ Styles setting up for a phenomenal forearm, jumping off the rope onto Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens managing to catch him and hitting a powerbomb on AJ Styles onto the mat. AJ Styles bouncing up on Kevin, tossing him over the rope, leaving us down to the final two here. Kevin Owens versus The Miz, and the two men go at it. It is an absolute war here. Both men want to become United States title #1 contender. And in the end, Kevin Owens manages to get The Miz up for a powerbomb. The Miz holding on to Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens going backwards towards the rope. And out of nowhere, Sami Zayn appearing, running down the ramp, jumping up and pulling down the top rope. That Kevin Owens hitting it, getting disoriented, falling backwards. The Miz managing to kind of push off from Kevin Owens and land in the ring, whilst Kevin falls outside of it. So in the end, your winner and the new #1 contender to the United States Championship is The Miz. It will be Chad Gable versus The Miz at Battleground for the belt. And the match gets the 76 here. Very good. As I said, final four, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, Drew McIntyre and The Miz. Kevin Owens final elimination, and Drew McIntyre with the most eliminations over the course of the match, with 3 eliminations for him. 2 for Kevin Owens, 1 for Seth, 1 for Angelo, 1 for The Fiend, attacking Drew McIntyre, of course, and The Miz getting the final elimination with a little help from Sami Zayn. Happy with that, a 76. Good battle royale, I think. A lot of good competitors in it, and The Miz gets the win. And then after the match, for an 80, The Miz and Chad Gable going face to face. Chad Gable on commentary throughout the match. And they go face to face, a bit of a verbal war. The Miz saying he's going to teach Chad Gable a lesson. He's going to take that title away from him at Battleground. Whilst Chad Gable saying, come on, I want you, I want your best. Because if you think you can step up, if you think you can take this away from me, then I want you to. But I promise, I'm not going down without a fight for an 80. There should be a good match at Battleground, hopefully. We have an interview with Edge for an 80. Edge talking about the main event, talking about teaming with Daniel Bryan. Charlie Kross says, with how things are between you and Daniel Bryan, the tension obviously leading into your match at Battleground for the WWE title, do you think you two can coexist here tonight? And Edge says, as long as Daniel Bryan doesn't try and get in my way, as long as he doesn't try anything stupid or silly out there, then we'll be fine. I have no issues with Daniel Bryan, really. I'm looking forward to our match at Battleground because I want to show him that I am the better superstar here today. Leading into the main event, Edge and Daniel Bryan versus the UE. Yes, a 75. In the end, Kyle O'Reilly outside the ring, and Daniel Bryan and Edge hitting a tag team move of sorts on Bobby Fish. Edge hitting the spear and Daniel Bryan hitting the running knee at the same time. The double impact on Bobby Fish to 2 parts of his body, taking him down, and Edge getting the pin for a 75. Edge with a 75 in ring, 84 for Bryan, 63 for Kyle, 57 for Bobby Fish. A good match. Then afterwards, Daniel Bryan and Edge squaring up again. Edge raising the WWE title in the air. Daniel Bryan turning around, going out of the ring towards the ramp, looking back at Edge when from behind, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly attack him, taking him down. Edge looking a bit worried, a bit concerned, begins moving towards the two when out of nowhere, Adam Cole appears behind him and hits a super kick to the back of Edge's head, taking him down before bouncing off the rope and hitting him with the last shot. Adam Cole joining his Undisputed Era brothers on Monday Night Raw here and setting sights immediately on the top prize for the 82. And the show itself gets a 78, a very, very good show. Again, a very good run of shows we've been on lately. And the show increased our popularity in 48 regions. Very good, as the momentum continues to be built towards Battleground for Raw. Moving on, next is, of course, another episode of NXT. And NXT gets underway with the NXT Women's Champion Tegan Nox making her way down to the ring. Obviously not happy after last week. She had the NXT Women's Championship match against Mickie James, where she retained the title but by disqualification after Mickie James attacked her to end the match, coming out to the ring for a 58, calling out Mickie James, who comes out not into the ring, but she comes out onto the stage for a 54, and they go back and forth. Tegan Nox says that last week was evidence that obviously Mickie James doesn't have what it takes to keep up with the new generation of superstars. Mickie James seems insulted at the suggestion from Tegan Nox, saying that all last week proves is that when it comes to it, Mickie James is smarter than Tegan Nox, because Mickie James saw that Tegan Nox was inches away from cheating herself to winning Mickie James's true NXT Women's title. And so Mickie James took it into her own hands to keep it, and that is the thing a champion does. They do whatever it takes to remain on top, like Mickie James did. And Mickie promises Tegan that if they come up against each other again, the result will be the same but different, because it will end with Tegan Nox down, flat on her back again, but this time Mickie James victorious. The 54, good segment here to start the show. And then we head into the first match of the evening. Keith Lee taking on Andrew Everett. Obviously last week Cameron Grimes got a little help from Everett to defeat Dominik Dijakovic. Keith Lee came to help ward off the post-match attack, and now Keith Lee taking on Andrew Everett. Next up, Cameron Grimes and Dijakovic ringside, and Keith Lee picking up the victory. Andrew Everett sadly off his game for his NXT debut. Keith Lee winning with a Spirit Bomb for a 52. 65 for Lee, 31 for Everett. Lee doing very well here, and it's announced that next week will be a tag team match. Cameron Grimes and Andrew Everett versus Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic. If Keith Lee's and Dijakovic win, Dijakovic will be added to the Keith Lee Cameron Grimes North American title match at No Mercy. If Cameron Grimes and Andrew Everett win, then Andrew Everett will be added instead. Going forward, we go backstage. Andrade, Zelina Vega and Humberto Carrillo all together, all very happy after last week. Zelina Vega talking for them, saying that Humberto is a very talented, young and hungry competitor. Andrade and her see that in him, and they will nurture him and bring him to the very top. When Angelo del Fantasma storms in, not happy at their attack of Rey Mysterio last week, and things end with a shoving match. Fantasma pushing Andrade, Carrillo getting in the way and pushing Fantasma, the two men exchanging blows before being separated, leading to an announcement for a match later tonight. Hijo del Fantasma versus Humberto Carrillo. 77 for this segment, very good from the Cruiserweights as usual. And then next up, Damian Priest taking on Kalisto, and Damian Priest picking up the win. 58 for Priest, 55 for Kalisto. Kalisto sadly off his game. 54 for the segment. Priest winning with the South of Heaven, as Damian Priest continues to build up momentum since reappearing on the Black and Gold brand at the beginning of May. And we go backstage to the Velveteen. Dream wandering around, knocking on Aleister Black's doors again. Aleister Black and opens it, sees Dream not very happy. Dream says, I'm not here, I don't want to disturb you, I won't be here long, I won't take up too much of your time. I just wanted to come and apologise again and ask that if maybe you could keep an eye on my main event later against Kross, against Karrion Kross, just to make sure there's no funny business from him or Scarlett. And Black very dryly saying that Dream got himself into this situation, and he's a big boy, I'm sure he can handle himself here too, before slamming in the door in a disgruntled Velveteen Dream's face for an 82. A great segment between these two. And then next up, a match from the ongoing storyline in the Cruiserweight Tag Team division between the Swords of Essex and the Colons. We have Primo taking on Scotty Essex, and it's back and forth before out of nowhere Epico attacks Will Ospreay on the outside of the ring. Will Ospreay getting very angry and chasing after Epico, jumps the barrier, running around through the crowd area, distracting Scotty Essex enough for Primo to hit a backstabber into a roller to pick up the victory for a 45 here. 34 for Primo, 47 for Scotty Essex, 45. Very good rating, all things considered, for this match, as the Clones get one over the Swords of Essex once again. Before after the match, the Clones going up the ramp celebrating. Will Ospreay checking on Scotty Essex, very angry, and he demands a match with Epico right now. Epico and Primo begin to walk away, turning it down, before Will Ospreay says, are they afraid? Do they really have so little faith in their abilities that they can't, Epico won't take on Will Ospreay one-on-one, which fires Epico up, who agrees to the match. So next up, Epico versus Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay gets the win with the Stormbreaker. 52 for the match, 60 from Will Ospreay. Really, really good. 30 for Epico, who was sadly off his game, but still 52 overall. Very happy with that, as the Swords of Essex finally get one over on the Colognes here. And then we cut to a promo from Karrion Kross about the main event later tonight, where he talks about how he can't wait to get his hands on the Velveteen Dream one-on-one. How he can't wait to break the Velveteen Dream piece by piece in the middle of the ring, until there is nothing left of him, before ending it with a warning to Aleister Black to stay away, saying this is personal, this is his business for what the Velveteen Dream did, and he's sure Aleister Black will stay away, because Aleister Black is obviously a smart man, and what a smart man would do was stay as far away from the angry, pissed off Karrion Kross as possible for a 71. Before next up, a match announced earlier in tonight, Hijo del Fantasma versus Humberto Carrillo, and with the referee a little bit distracted by Humberto Carrillo feigning an injury, Andrade sneaks into the ring and hits a low blow on El Hijo del Fantasma, taking him out. Humberto Carrillo magically recovering before laying out Fantasma with a swift drop kick, getting him flat on the mat before hitting a moonsault for the victory. Humberto getting the win here, 61 for the match. Really, really good for these two. Humberto with the 41, Fantasma carrying it with the 67, and the two men have great chemistry, and it showed. That is really good to know, as Humberto's new alliance with Andrade pays dividends already, with Andrade helping him pick up the victory here. Then we cut backstage to an interview with Tegan Knox, talking about Mickie James come out earlier tonight, and she says that she has spoken to General Manager. She has spoken to the General Manager, William Regal, and she is here to announce that at No Mercy, it will be Tegan Knox, Mickie James, 1v1 in a steel cage match. No disqualifications, no Mickie James running away easily. It's just her and Tegan Knox in that cage, where Tegan Knox promises that she will finally rid herself of the annoyance that has been Mickie James for a 56. Tegan Knox improvising very well throughout the segment. And finally, we head towards the main event, the Velveteen Dream making his entrance for the 80, and then Karrion Kross making his entrance for an 80. Then the match itself, the NXT Champion Karrion Kross versus the Velveteen Dream, and Karrion Kross picks up the win, locking in the cross jacket, and the referee with no choice but to stop the match as Velveteen Dream passes out, no longer able to compete for a 66. The 64 in-ring performance of Karrion Kross, the 57 from the Velveteen Dream, as Karrion Kross gets his revenge on Dream here tonight. And then after the match, Scarlett getting in the ring, her and Kross posing above Velveteen Dream's now unconscious body for the 78. A very good ending to the show, which overall gets a 71. Good show. 72 last week, I believe. 71, staying around that area. They increased our popularity in 27 regions, lost it in 21, but I'm happy with the show overall. I think it's keeping all the storylines moving, heading into No Mercy for NXT. And with NXT and Raw both out the way, it's time to end week 3 of May here with Smackdown. And Smackdown getting underway here with another appearance from MVP and Bobby Lashley coming down to the ring for a 73, talking about Big E again. MVP bigging up Bobby Lashley, saying that Big E has obviously run away scared from Bobby Lashley after seeing just firsthand what Bobby Lashley can do to him. And MVP said that's fine, that's understandable, but the least you can do is bring back the Universal title, mail it in if you have to, so it can be awarded to a rightful leader, a rightful champion, Bobby Lashley. 73 here, and then MVP and Bobby Lashley interrupted by Kofi Kingston for a 72, coming down to the ring. Obviously, Big E's New Day brother, and he's not happy. He's all serious, saying that Big E's not running away scared. Big E is away. He's training. He's getting ready. So when he comes back, he can kick Bobby Lashley and MVP's asses. And Lashley and MVP kind of laugh it off. And Kofi says, "I'm not going to let E have all the fun though. So why don't you and me," talking to Lashley, "do it tonight?" And MVP and Bobby Lashley look happy at the prospect, agreeing to the match, setting up main event player Bobby Lashley versus Kofi Kingston. Going next, then we go backstage to an interview with Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan, talking about last week. Obviously, they defeated Naomi and Bianca Belair in tag team action. Ruby Riott pinning the $1 Million champion Naomi, setting up a match here tonight for the $1 Million championship. Ruby Riott versus Naomi. 37 segment-wise, Riott talking about how tonight will be a repeat of last week, her pinning Naomi, but this time she'll get her hands on the $1 Million championship. She says for years she's just been kind of floating around in WWE, and she is tired of that. She's ready to take her rightful spot as a champion. Leading into the match next up, Naomi versus Ruby Riott for the $1 Million championship. And Naomi does manage to get the win. Bianca Belair at ringside and Liv Morgan as well, both watching the match. And in the end, Naomi picks up the victory for 52, 53 for Naomi, 48 from Ruby Riott. Very good from these two. Ruby Riott getting better gimmick, that's good. Then post-match, Bianca Belair comes into the ring, and her and Naomi stare down, square off. Naomi raising the $1 Million title in the air. Bianca Belair letting her know in no unsung terms that she is coming and she's going to take that title, when suddenly Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott attack the two women from behind. The Riott Squad beating down Naomi and Bianca Belair. Ruby Riott picking up the $1 Million title and looking at it before smashing it into Naomi's face for a 54. The Riott Squad turning heels here, obviously frustrated with being in the shadows for too long. And then afterwards we go backstage to Roman Reigns for 77. Reigns talking about taking out Matt Hardy last week, talking about how Jeff Hardy's obviously scared. And he says that's understandable because he should be. Because what Roman Reigns did to Matt Hardy last week, what Jeff Hardy saw him do to his brother, it's going to be 10 times worse from Jeff Hardy, because Roman doesn't really have a problem with, but Jeffy does, because Jeff Hardy has continuously, non-stop, put his nose into the Bloodline's business, into Roman Reigns' business, and it's a problem. He said that the Bloodline is done with losing. He invites Jeff Hardy to a meeting with the Tribal Chief next week, and he says, for now though, tonight, it's about the Usos. You have a match up next with DIY. DIY get the win for Johnny Gargano pinning Jey Uso after the meeting in the middle. DIY retaining the Smackdown tag team titles for a 65. Very good. 69 for Gargano, 66 for Jey, 61 for Jimmy, 61 for Tommaso. Very pleased all round with this. The two tag teams are doing great work together, as you'd expect, to be honest. And then we go backstage to Thaddeus Bullard and Paul Heyman speaking with General Manager Paige for 78. Thaddeus Bullard a little bit beat up after the ending of his match last week with Apollo Crews. And Heyman says to Paige about what's next. Obviously, Apollo Crews couldn't get the job done. So what's next for the Intercontinental Champion of the World, Thaddeus Bullard? And Paige announces tonight there will be a number one contenders match, a fatal 4-way. And Heyman asks who are the competitors, and Paige says, I've still got to sort one of them out, but King Corbin, James Storm and Montez Ford will be in it. Bullard looking a bit pleased, saying that he's glad that nuisance Apollo Crews is nowhere near him and his title anymore, because obviously he wasn't at Bullard's level for 78. Then we stay backstage and we go to Kofi Kingston. Xavier Woods with him, saying that is Kofi sure about this, that E can handle himself. They both know that what Kofi and him should be focusing on right now is getting their Smackdown tag team titles back. And Kofi says, I know that he can handle himself. We all know that, but I can't stand another second of just standing in the sidelines whilst Bobby Lashley, while MVP, while all of them seem to think that E is a joke, the New Day is a joke. And he says, I know E is going to destroy Bobby Lashley when he gets his hands on him. But for now, I want my turn as well. Xavier looking a bit aghast, but understanding of Kofi's actions and intentions for 77 here. And then next up, as announced last week, the Women's Universal Champion Rhea Ripley taking on Billie Kay. Peyton Royce at ringside in the match. 54, Rhea Ripley getting the win with the Riptide. 38 for Billie Kay, 56 for Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley doing really well there to get that second rating as high as it is. And then after the match, Rhea Ripley doesn't even get a chance to celebrate before Peyton Royce runs in and attacks Rhea from behind, beating her down. Billie eventually getting up and helping her, whilst Toni Storm, and she runs down into the ring, forcing off the attack of the Iconics for 58. Toni providing a little bit of support for long-time rival Rhea Ripley here. And then next up, heading into the Intercontinental Championships #1 Contenders Fatal 4-Way. And out comes first King Corbin for 67, followed by James Storm for the 56, 78 for Montez Ford. And then everyone is waiting to find out who the fourth competitor is. Thaddeus Bullard and Paul Heyman at ringside when Apollo Crews music hits. Bullard, Heyman looks surprised. Bullard looks like he is tired of this, like he's done. He's angry as Apollo Crews, a bit bandaged up after his war with Thaddeus Bullard last week, makes his way down to the ring for a 77. And then during the match itself, Montez Ford and James Storm focus on each other a lot, taking each other out of the equation largely, leaving Apollo Crews and King Corbin in the ring. And in the end, Apollo Crews hits the spin-out powerbomb on King Corbin to pick up the victory and become the #1 contender to Thaddeus Bullard's Intercontinental Championship again. 65 for the match here, 59 for Crews, 53 for Corbin, 48 for Storm, and a 62 for Ford. Ford doing very well, showcasing his abilities once again, but it's Apollo Crews who comes out on top. And then after the match, Apollo Crews coming out of the ring and squaring up to Thaddeus Bullard, who stands up in defiance of him for a 77. Thaddeus Bullard letting Apollo Crews know in no uncertain terms that he is not on his level, that he can't compete, and that the result at No Mercy when they face will be what it always is. It will be inevitable. Thaddeus Bullard retaining, whilst Heyman kind of separates them and leads Thaddeus Bullard away. 77, very good segment. Leading into the main event, Bobby Lashley versus Kofi Kingston, and it's back and forth, and it looks like Lashley will get the win here when Big E runs in attacking Bobby Lashley. A disqualification win for Lashley here. Bobby Lashley trying to escape outside the ring. Big E catching up to him and throwing him into the barricade. The two men eventually having to be separated here for a 70. 59 for Lashley, 67 for Kingston. Then the post-match attack by Big E gets a 75 to end the show. Overall, I'd say a good show to end the show, and the show overall gets a 73. I'm happy with that. I think it was a good show, keeping all the relevant storylines going. Again, heading into No Mercy, increased our popularity in 27 regions. Can't really complain with that. That completes week 3 of May here. And next episode we'll be looking at the Raw, NXT and Smackdown go-home shows before Battleground and No Mercy. And if you've enjoyed this and you're looking forward to those, please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.